much. First, before I start something, reply your question. Uh, I actually want to give thanks to young uh, faculty of ideas, because their ideas has created today the MSc course on development studies. I think we should clap for them with beautiful initiation. All are very dynamic and young. I was so surprised to see. You become professor is should be 60 years like that. So your question, something on sustainability and justice. Before I answer, if you see, there is a lot of challenges as Sinha sir has talked about. If I see social work or sociological perspective, the first challenge comes to my mind is income inequality in the society. Until unless you have equal proportion of equity or income level to all of maybe for marginalized, you're talking about especially marginalized, it's very difficult to think beyond. Then I feel there is a lot of problem of social exclusion, the challenge now. If you do any work, anything, social exclusion. Somewhere, if you see in the rural area, we are talking about the Odisha and Kalahandi we are discussing. There are certain community, their livelihood depend on, daily labor, eating eggs of ants, this kind of people are there. They are totally excluded from the mainstream. Also, there is inequality in health and education system. Yes, we have, government has lot of good amount of proposal for health subsidy or health program schemes for everyone. But if you see, go to inside, you'll find, because we know we have done a lot of field work. And in field work, always say my student, you have to change the narrative from theory into practice to practice into theory. Now it should be. You have to see what is happening in the rural area. You practice it and see and bring something to the classroom and develop some new ideas or theories or model. So if you see, there a lot of discrimination and exclusion is there in the rural area. So if you don't have their participation with the broader aspect, that any program, any social justice, sustainable development, talk about 17 goals, it cannot be successful. Also, their problem is poverty inequality. Poverty is a global challenge, but still there are countries like Sarah was talking about, we were discussing about Scandinavian countries, Norway or other country, how they are using their resources for the common man. Talking about that around more than 60% things are done by panchayat level. It doesn't come to higher level. So government also giving free education, free health facilities to all. And that gives you everybody to comes in one umbrella. Also challenges is that environmental degradation. Environmental degradation is now a bigger question to all of us, because that somewhere kicked out those indigenous people. Also, we are working indigenous people. They are kicked out from the mainstream because they need support, they need health, they need education, they need somewhere other part of the benefits they are not getting. So when you talk about sustainable development and social justice, there are opportunity. You can, as an institution, there are certain actors, government, private sector, education institution, also civil society. There are main 4-5 actors who are acting to promote sustainable development and social justice. The opportunity is that you should have now sustainable agriculture. You have to promote climate resilient agriculture to those small sector of farmers. You have to support them. Also here you have better option inclusive economic policies, and those policies should reach to the unreached people. So you have also possibility for partnership. We also talk about that PPP model. Now you have to have build the confidence of the local people. So local participation, it doesn't come, your sustainability or your social justice cannot be possible. So also you have technology or innovative ideas. Even when we go to field practice for any research, we feel that these people doesn't know anything. These community people doesn't have any idea. But this is the first failure from our mindset. Those people have their best idea, best mind. They are the person, they can decide what the solution should be. So what I do mean is the local participation, this participation of common man, that should be main area, or we should keep the main priority. Otherwise, development study, whatever you teach, the practice we do, doesn't matter anything. So we have to give the importance of those people. Also, there are a lot of innovative ideas, south and south cooperation, collaboration we can have. Their best practices we can take. There are a lot of best practices like in Kerala, Tamil Nadu. They are having best practices in terms of social development, in terms of social justice. So we can use those practices and implement other sectors. So I think these are some areas where sustainable development, if you were to do some kind of under 17 agenda of SDG goal or social justice for everyone, then you have to think other way. Not what is happening in theoretical, but you have to think other practical way, what is happening in the grassroots level. Without the participation of common man, without participation of the unreached people, your program, your sustainable development goal cannot be successful. I think these are some area. This comes to my mind now. From social perspective, we do practice until unless you trust the common man's idea. You trust. We say there's a one principle in social we use, that you have to develop, you have to use their mind your own. Otherwise, which is in one term is called empathy. Until unless empathy and resilience you have, you cannot work this idea into practice. So I think these are some area we can think of, and then we can discuss. Thank you.
Professor Seema, Kazi, may I invite you next? And also, the larger question stands, but you are also somebody who worked extensively on conflict and human rights, etc. Also, something which we don't talk enough on, having developmental process and conflict zones, maybe. So, if you could also throw some light on that in addition.
Yeah, try to do that. So 5 minutes I have.
Yeah.
Well, good evening, and I'd like to begin by thanking Sanjoy Global University and Vice Chancellor Professor Rajkumar and Dean Professor Mohan and all the distinguished panelists and all friends with whom I can share a few thoughts. Well, this panel is, the question of development is a very fraught one, and I remember my earliest degree was in women and development, and it was a rather troubled engagement, which I sort of discarded, but as you mentioned, I'm still working in the area of conflict. So what is the problem? I think that, I'm taking a kind of a different global view of the enormous challenges which are actually interrelated, because the world is interrelated. It is not really, bounded, territorial, nation states or societies which are isolated from each other. We are all in it together, and we are all facing very common kind of crisis. So I'd like to just quote, some of the work of Wendy Brown, which I'm not paraphrasing, but I think she sums it up very well when she says that thinking about development emerges from the converging crisis of democracy, development, and ecology, imperiling all planetary life today, although unevenly. Democracy and development are deeply imbricated in the deep, irreversible, and profound damage inflicted by colonial capitalist modernity, the era of fossil fuels, unsustainable practices of production and consumption, extreme geopolitical inequalities, and very wretched forms of destruction and exploitation for both human and non-human life. And I think that, we can all, it kind of sums up of the enormous challenge of development, which is also intersecting with, it has multiple axes in economy, it is anchored in also, societies, in democracy, political systems that we have, etc. So then I just want to, talk about a few normative kind of parameters of development, which I think that all of you experts are probably familiar with. There's deep economic inequality and dependency and exploitative relations of power between states in the modern world. They are still very much there, although the colonial era is over. And then there are also competing national interests and also, geopolitical rivalries, which kind of fragment, a common kind of humanistic or ethical perspective of development. And we know that very well because we recently have witnessed it in South Asia in very tragic ways. And then, there's also, problems within the global South itself. There's fragmentation and rivalries between states of the global South. Some states are more powerful than other states, so they have more influence on the international system or in the region. And then we have, models of development like, neoliberal models of development, which I think all South Asian states, including India, tragically have followed and are following to the great detriment of a lot of citizens. And then there's rising debt and also, limited representation of global South countries in the international financial system, where, you have IMF and the rest of it, and the terms of engagement are very unfair. So what I propose is that, I don't know whether you've heard of Professor Richard Falk. I think he's in his 90s, but he's an extraordinary kind of peace activist and also a philosopher, really. And I'd just like to quote him and say that we must reimagine a sense of our place in the world so that it becomes our standpoint, a patriotism for humanity in which the whole becomes greater than the part. The concept of global governance, which he introduced, I think more than 1.5 decades ago now, does not seek to eliminate difference among peoples or citizens, but it seeks to complement and cohere such differences between citizens and societies with a sense of a common humanity, a collectivity, while respecting and sustaining separate and distinctive identities. And I think that this concept is very useful, and I think India particularly is a very good reservoir of this imagination, because as Tagore wrote, we are not like Europe. The countries of Europe are more or less similar. They have different languages, but they are, kind of ethnically similar. But India is not like that. It has always been historically very plural and rich. And there have been so many cultures which have flourished and coexisted here. So I think that we can draw upon some of our cultural resources also, apart from economic paradigms and development paradigms, to think of the world as an interconnected and interdependent space. And I think that's something which, it was mentioned, someone mentioned the ethical dimensions of development, and I think that those are equally important. And then, I don't know how much time I have, but let me go to the question of conflict and development. I can't claim to be expert on that, but from whatever little modest field research, empirical data which I have collected, and talked to societies in the Northeast and in Kashmir, I think that there are some things which I just want to sum up here. Firstly, conflict situations are devastating. They are not simply about fighting state security forces fighting armed insurgents. They kind of permeate into societies, and they enter into the capillaries, if I can put it that way, into societies, and then the human capital, the social capital of that society is destroyed, and societies therefore cannot progress, and there is no development. So that's something really terrible, and entire regions can be put behind by not just years but by decades. So that's something really profound for development, theorizing, and also development practice and policy. I think some of the major, outcomes are economic disruption, the destruction of infrastructure, civilian infrastructure like roads, schools, and hospitals, and economic activity, the deterioration or complete erasure of social services, like health services, education, access to safe water, or high rates of child and maternal mortality, and the spread of disease. And then there is definitely the intersection of conflict with climate change, which has happened very much in the Himalayan region, but also in the Northeast region, as we had these floods. There's this the intersections create climates of instability, and then in such a climate it undermines economic life and certainly human development, investment, and economic growth. And I think that these are things which development policy ought to keep in kind of mind. Then higher levels of poverty, and particularly gender inequality, because I think that it's fairly well known and very well also now mainstreamed, the fact that women suffer in particular and in very kind of gendered ways in areas of conflict. Many men are killed, and women have to look after the family. They have to also look after the elderly and the vulnerable. So it places additional burden on women. It also, all these intersecting multiple factors then kind of push women back into traditional roles. Women who might be working just push back into taking care of vulnerable families. So what I would suggest here is, in terms of conflict, is that I think development planning must shift from kind of just thinking of economic initiatives within conflict situations. They should actually encourage a people-centric, inclusive, peace-building initiatives. And here I don't mean that they take on a political role, but they kind of use people as a catalyst to try and forge a lasting peace. And I think that that's where development intersects with conflict, because it can become a catalyst. It need not be the prime kind of instigator of conflict resolution, which of course is very different, but I think that it can play a more positive and more kind of facilitative role in ending conflict. Then I really think that this is the problem about resource scarcity in our context. This is there across South Asia, and definitely even in India, where the focus on security just takes away the resources for investment in civilian infrastructure like health and education, especially girls and women's education also. And then I think that development policy and planners should also perhaps again play a kind of facilitative role in suggesting that in conflict situations the local governance system is undermined. Therefore, people cannot access basic development, basic social services, and development is completely stalled because of the climate of fear and uncertainty. And lastly, I would just say that conflict spaces are extremely complex. They are not easy. They are full of every day is a new challenge. But I think that we have the resources, and we have lots of people who understand how conflict can be resolved. It's just very sad that we can't somehow seem to try and end those conflicts. And in the end, I would just like to suggest the idea which I feel we could have an idea of reparative development. Development which is restorative and reparative instead of just development as development, and I don't mean to discount the importance of the term, but what I mean here is that such a model would kind of be cognizant of an interdependent world. It would be a model where the autonomous character of citizens would be a little bit eroded, because we are all interconnected. We are not living in silos and by ourselves. And all citizens could mobilize their human capabilities towards recognizing development as a relational concept, as a relational paradigm where we are all related to each other. What happens in the United States is going to affect us, and it already is. So I think that the idea of reparative development would reject concentrations of economic and social power, and the goal of social justice could be advanced by being sensitive and responsive to the deep histories of inequalities and violence, racial, gendered, regional, hemispheric, and between human and non-human. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Seema Kazi. And now we have Professor Hebatallah and a very familiar face for some of us from JGU. But you have also worked extensively on green economies and political economy. So just to put environment also at the center of this conversation. Thank you.
First of all, before starting, I would like to congratulate my dear friend, Dean Professor Dipansho, for starting or launching that very important program, the Master Degree in Development Studies. This is the right time. The world, not only India, the Global South really need such kind of new degrees to be launched from the Global South, because usually we are getting dictated by how to do development from Global North, and we need to have initiatives that from the Global South to how we can attain our inclusive growth and development by ourselves. So it's really a very good initiatives, and it is on time, and for all the team member here, it's congratulations for all your efforts, and also for organizing today panel discussion and the event, and of course for inviting me. Starting first, speaking about the inclusive, as I have mentioned in my introductory words, that inclusive growth. So inclusive growth is actually at the heart of the 2030 global agenda for sustainable development. And speaking about the global South and countries or developing countries, what kind of real problems that they are facing? And from my point of view, I feel like they are facing a big paradox. From one side, they do have all the natural resources and minerals and capabilities, human capital, like here India, China, my country Egypt, we do have high populations. They are all youth and educated and motivated to do lots of things. But on the other side, we are embedded in asymmetric global economic and political structures. So all the geopolitical and geoeconomics challenges are hindering us from achieving our sustainable goals, and of course to attain the inclusive growth targets. And answering the first question that was asked to all the esteemed panels on how to advance sustainable development and social justice for global South countries, and what kind of geopolitical and geoeconomic challenges that we are facing, and some suggestions for reforms that our world really needs to support the global South countries. So first of all is that all the global power asymmetries that I have mentioned, we have to admit that they are all not because of us, that we are not able to attain development. It is we don't have any deficiency in ourselves. It's all related to the historical legacies of colonialism and the unequal trade relations, of course, imposed by the global north on us, and the financial dependencies that they have created. So we are in a situation that we need to find some new innovative solutions to attain sustainable development, given that context and the historical challenges that we have inherited from our past. And to shed more light about what kind of challenges we are facing because of this historical heritage, we do have first, from what my point of view, the trade and value chains and production, international production patterns that our world now is following. So most of global South countries, they remain positioned at low value added manufactured goods, raw materials, minerals, fuels, and cheap labor products. So of course, all this is not adding to our production, is not helping us to get more income to attain the sustainable development goals. And this is perfectly aligned with what Prebish described as the center-periphery dynamics. So it's still valid till dates, although it has been explained long time ago, but till dates we are having that pattern of center and periphery, and unfortunately our global South countries, they are in the periphery. So trade and value chains are the first challenge we are facing. The second is the global financial architecture. And when we mention the global financial architecture, of course, the first thing comes to our mind is the conditionality and debt dependency on the North, on IMF and World Bank. And whenever we ask for their help, they are imposing a big, long list of conditions that they are difficult to attain, and also they are imposing lots of challenges on our own people and society. So they are not helping us to attain the sustainable development goals and the inclusive growth, because most the vulnerable population and women and poor people, usually they are the one who are paying the highest bill of such kind of debt and financial assistance from the North and from international organizations. The third challenge is that climate governance. And speaking about climate governance, we are speaking about the climate change and global South, and we are, if we check the data, we are the least contributing to the carbon dioxide emissions, but on the same time we are paying the most, and we are not getting the financial supports from the global north because of what they have done to us. So it is, again, it is a very big challenge, because adaptations and adaptation finance flows that are coming from global north or from international organizations, they are not enough. and of course we need more to attain our sustainable goals and to be able to cope with these kind of challenges that our world is facing. To answer your question of how to move to justice and sustainability, what kind of reforms that Global South really needs to implement, or let's not say the Global South, the international reforms that we need that be implemented to help the Global South to attain their sustainable goals and transformative justice. So first of all, of course, we need to have a reform of global financial system. Since this is the main challenge we face, we need finance, so we need to have, for example, restructuring the debt and to tie it more with climate actions. Certain goals, not to be only not only to cut on subsidies and social protection. So we need to have other kind of goals to be set, like related to climate action, and not only climate action but also social goals. We can also establish fairer global tax regimes, and so we can try as much as we can to prevent illicit financial flows and profit shifting by multinational corporations from the south towards the north. Second is to try to rebalance the global trade rules, and here I mean like to give more opportunities for the global south to have a higher share from the global supply chains, to support them, to localize especially the renewable energy industries, and to ensure that intellectual property right reform for green technologies are enabled and global south countries have access to them. Lastly is that we need to have climate finance mechanisms to be in place, and in different multinational platforms discussing climate change. So many initiatives have been announced, like for example the loss and damage fund agreed in COP28. So we all know that during multinational meetings they agree to establish lots of funds, but they are not operationalized. So we need to, we are here, I mean we, the Global South, we need to have a role in pushing the work in such kind of funds, and not only to be followers of this kind of strategies that they are imposing, but also to play a role in setting the strategies and initiatives, and to attain our goal is to have more of finance and support from such kind of initiatives. So I believe this are the main points